Hi, I'm Nadia Dunn. Welcome to CCL TV. We're here at the WMX EMEA event in Dubai, and joining me are some wonderful industry leaders and experts. So guys, if we could let's start with you, John. If you could tell us a bit about yourself and the company.
Okay, I'm with, my name's John Sproat. I'm with FB Canada Express. I'm the COO of the company, and we handle inbound freight into Canada and distribution across the country.
I'm Mark Lasses, and I'm with Your Cargo Contact, CEO, and we're a gateway into Europe for e-commerce solutions.
And Jason.
Yeah, I'm Jason Lee. I'm the Business Development Director for CCL. CCL is a customs specialist based in London, and we do a gateway for e-commerce shipment.
And James.
I'm James Marley. I am Head of Partnerships in Europe for Zonos, and we're a tech company doing cross-border technology.
You said wonderful, right? I'm Rudee, CCL, CEO. Jason said it all for me.
Now, the industry has seen a huge transformation in recent years, specifically digitally. So, Rudee, do you want to start by telling us a bit about that?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting, really. There's a lot of disruptors in the industry nowadays. Starting from traditional customs brokerage, everything was more or less done manually, right? In order to keep up with the pace of demand and the expansion of the volume coming through, especially for B2C deliveries, technology had to be brought in place. And by technology, it's more like, from our point of view, it's all manifest data-driven based type of systems, which creates, if you want, your data hubs that creates and integrates into customs customs integration worldwide. So from our point of view, from a CCL point of view, if we didn't have the amount of technology in place, we'll probably have to employ like 20 to 30 more people, right? So having the actual technology in place, we can manage to speed up our services and also be more accurate with our services, right? So in a nutshell, that's more or less where we sit in the market.
Yeah, I agree. I think also in the market changes, the economic changes, without technology it was completely impossible to do what we've done in the last 2-3 years. Absolutely.
Same with FB. We've grown. I think we went up about 8,000% in the past 2 years. You know, going from about maybe 1 million shipments inbound a year to 22 million last year, and we're expecting about 70-80 million shipments into Canada this year. And just with the number of manifests that we have to process and it's all tech. We rely so much heavily on, just data transmissions and everything, because as Rudee said too, just employing people to by eye human, there's going to be so much human error. As we traditionally used to do it, we'd get one manifest and be able to just peruse through it and, oh yeah, that's fine, it's good to go. Now there's just so much data and so much volume that, we had to adapt.
I think it's been a perfect storm, really, hasn't it? It's been, we've had Brexit, we've had the EU VAT changes, we've had COVID, and it's just seen volumes go through the roof. A lot of these countries have had huge costs as a result of COVID, and now they're looking to reclaim some of the money for that outlay that's been going on recently. And so the natural kind of target for reclaiming that money is going after e-commerce that's seen this mega boom. And so we're seeing increased regulation and compliance being placed on e-commerce shipments going all over the world. But the logistics industry is doing really well. It's got a fantastic, we always say logistics doesn't have a shipping problem, it has a technology problem. And they're very good at getting shipments from A to B. But when it comes to actually controlling the data and putting it in the right place, we're still dealing with something that's very old. And so that's where we come into play.
And, talking of this, the econ boom, is that going to plateau? Is it already plateauing? What's the future?
Yeah, I just wanted to, continue with the discussion on the digital transformation as well. For example, I think from a customs perspective, not only do we have to internally, business-wise, we have to process the amount of data, so the technology would enable us to do that. But externally, for our customers, I think more and more customers would expect to get more information from us, so we could feed the information back to the system, especially when the customer expect they want to know every step of the customer journey, of the parcel journey. And I think for example, you've got the last mile tracking, first mile tracking, or even the line haul tracking, but from the customer's perspective, there's no more tracking events. I think, with the technology in place, even that bit, the customer could know what's happening with the customs. Is there a customs inspection, or what kind of tax do I need to pay, and stuff like that. So I think from that perspective, digital transformation is definitely important for any type of business that's involved in the whole supply chain.
Yeah. And I think our government authorities are going to rely more on us to provide that information. I know HS codes aren't mandatory in Canada, for example, yet, but they will be within a year or two. And we're going, since we are the ones transmitting the information and data to them, we need to make sure that we're supplying correct information. And so, with partners and suppliers that are able to identify these things, we can be confident, and we take the liability. So we can be confident that we're providing CBSA with accurate information. Right now they have a generalized tariff HS code in Canada, but it's an extremely high duty rate, and if we can get accurate information, we're going to save the retailers more money, because they're not going to be paying the higher threshold if they don't know the HS codes. And it's just an added service that we can add to our clients, saying, hey, listen, we can identify this for you, and look good for the government as well, saying, hey, we're providing you accurate information.
But Nadia, did you say about the e-commerce boom? Right, so the e-commerce boom, is it boomed or is it still booming? Right, so it's still, the trajectory is still going up. Right, so it's increasing rapidly, daily. Right, even though you're probably hearing, news stories of e-commerce online, not necessarily e-commerce, but online retail slowing down. Right, it's still at a massive high. Mm-hmm. Right, people are still going online. They're still making orders. Looking here around in the malls of Dubai here, they're kind of. I would have expected to see more people, more or less, but I would imagine with e-commerce in place or online retail in place, that's probably why there's not so many people around, right? Maybe on the weekends you might see more people around, because people like to get out on the weekends and in the shopping malls, the restaurants and whatnot. But yeah, and just like a generalization of bricks and mortar versus online retail, right? You can see anywhere you go, right? We're in the UK, you see it in the UK. I'm sure you see the same in Canada and stuff as well, right? So
it is still booming, but it's woefully underserved when it comes to cross-border, in that we're still in a situation where people are sending shipments and the driver's coming to deliver something, and then you've got some van driver saying, now you owe me $40 in duties and taxes, and it's just a terrible customer experience. So while it is still booming, it could be so much bigger than it currently is if people will consider alternatives and look to build in. There's so much offer architecture and pricing things you can do to make it a really compelling international offer. Localized payment methods, currencies, all these things, they're very easy to do. But e-commerce businesses have been underserved in that they've sought these solutions that are like package holidays from the 1990s. You got your flights included, you got your drinks included, the taxi to the airport, but they don't do what you need them to do. They're just kind of generic solutions. And I think e-commerce businesses want something more specific. They want to be able to control, duty drawback and understand the VAT, and not just pay 9% of their revenue for all their international shipments. They need to have some control over that.
Well, but in terms of the volume, in the last months we saw it more or less stabilizing, and the market is less hectic as last year, so less occurrences and changes within the market. But I also believe there is growth and potential in the volumes of e-commerce, for sure.
The other change is we have seen a lot of, particularly after the VAT regulation change in the EU and the UK, a lot of business have moved their fulfillment more locally. So, for example, now we have seen a lot of business changing from business to consumer to B2B into fulfillment centers, for example, FBA Freight, and also other fulfillment centers. That's really, a lot of even like Chinese companies, they open up fulfillment centers in the UK. So we, in that case, we have seen an increase in that area of business. Therefore, our sort of operation has to change, has to adapt as well, because traditionally the B2B clearance is very, very manual, but now we have developed this data solution in order to cope with that, multiple import of records and multiple HS codes. So those are the type of things that we need to adapt to, and you need to do that very quickly. And also those are the customer demand. If you don't do it, you're going to fall behind. Yeah, I'm sure this.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, and
Move on. What they said.
now, Mark, tell us a bit about the innovative solutions that you use at YCC to improve the customer journey.
Well, we clearly started off with tailor-made solutions, otherwise it would have not been possible at all, because we couldn't wait for the market and the software providers at that moment in the market. So we started off tailor-made, new to support the products, DDU, DDP, custom clearance on item level per parcel. So yeah, that made it possible. We had to change the infrastructure because the data was much more than our internet lines couldn't process. Well, you had to thought of everything.
Yeah.
So far before Brexit, we prepared, and by the time that Brexit was definitely announced, there were some parties too late in the market.
Great. And James?
Yeah, I mean, we started off in the world of calculating the landed cost. So working out how much it's actually going to cost at the point of sale to get a shipment from point A to point B. And a lot of people, will go out and assume that it's simply duties and taxes, but that's not the case. You have duties, you have taxes, but then you have, clearance fees, disbursement fees, foreign exchange rates, and they can be 40-50% of more than what the duties and taxes are. And so, where we've kind of made our niche was working out exactly how much it's going to cost. And then, so we went out selling, landed cost, and we were saying to our customers, so what are your HS codes? And they're saying, well, we don't know what an HS code is. So then we created this solution that allows you to effectively drop, 1 million products into our system, and it will give you back the full and accurate HS codes going into any country in the world. So then the solution that came after that was, well, if we're so good at calculating landed cost, then prove it. So then we have to guarantee the landed cost, and that was kind of funky because it now meant that we could say whatever it's going to cost in the checkout is what you'll pay, end of story. Mm-hmm. Now that might change because, if I send a shipment today from the UK and tomorrow it gets to Lagos, then the sterling's fluctuated against the naira by 10 points, and so my calculation might be off. So we guarantee that. So whatever it's going to cost is what you're going to pay, end of story. And we'll take the money and we'll pay it to the carrier, we'll pay it straight to the customs broker and have that account with them. But then that made something else for us in that because we had this digital stake in the checkout, it meant we could become the electronic interface or the online marketplace, which meant we were the VAT supplier. So now there's no longer the need to register, report and remit your EU VAT to the EU authorities or register for an HMRC a VAT number in the UK. And so it's just about making things easier, and it's very easy to do. Yeah.
And Rudee, you're all for making things easier, right?
What's the original question? I wasn't even paying attention.
Tell us about innovative solutions.
Ooh, where do you want me to start? Well, put it this way. We were just discussing about the customer experience, right? So from a CCL point of view, like innovation on our side, where we actually got involved in in DDU collection, which is now DAP, right? So we created like a online collection of duty and taxes, and we branded that CC Collect, right? That was actually born out of a hybrid type of solution leading from the postal services, turning up at your front door with the sticker, hold charge, all right? Holding you to a ransom to paying tax, otherwise you're not going to get your goods, right? So from like a user experience, it's like very negative. So we kind of created this online version. Then it went from an online version to like an app version, because you got to think about the actual consumer going to work on the bus or whatever, or walking down the road. They want to be able to get notification immediately. They want to make their payments immediately in a secure type of manner, rather than it feeling like a scammed type of solution. And that worked for us very well, right? Very, very well, up until the point where iOS, obviously Brexit and iOS kind of put spanner in the works for that kind of solution. So now we're at the point of, it still works well. So obviously with Zonos, etc., doing what they're doing, it kind of falls into play with our type of mindset thinking in regards to how do we get back that user experience? How do we become more relevant to the customer, right? So there's always like thought leaderships, and there's always, if you want, workshops going on in the background in how we can be one step ahead of the rest and stay relevant. Because what Jason said, if you're not relevant, you don't exist. Yeah. Well, I don't think he actually said it that way, but I mean, that's what he meant.
and knowing what the customer wants before they know they want it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, the other point, very interesting point that mentioned by James is the duty drawback, because especially now the high value goods, you've paid the import duty and VAT at the point of importation, but once if you don't want the parcel, you're going to have to get your duty drop all those taxes back. But how can you reclaim them? So what CCL does, I think is quite innovative, that we have to, because we've got all the data, we've got the import data, we've got the export data, then we can prove to the customs that these parcels have been returned to origin. Then we can get the duty back from the UK government. And now the interesting thing is, this process still is quite manual. Not every, when you talk about getting money back from the government, it's not going to be that easy. And also, different countries will have a different role, because each government is very different. Very interestingly, we've got approached by a business based in Dubai, and they are sending loads of parcels to Saudi Arabia, and they couldn't get their duty drawback back, and now they're thinking, they want us to provide that consulting service to them and say, how can we convince the government? How can you help? Teach us your process, convince the government that give our money back. So I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, like working with technology in this area, would kind of make it more of a seamless approach in order to get the money back from the governments, right? For example, so from a CCL point of view, if we control the data flow inbound, it's quite easy for us to control the duty drawback, right? If we're not controlling the data flow inbound, it becomes a problem, because it's like the carrier or the broker or the agent which has done that original inbound, they don't really want to share that information with you, right? For whatever the reason may be. And that's a problem, because what it means is that we can offer the service, but we can't give the service, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to probably work a bit more aligned with the technology platforms of the industry to actually come up with some type of solutions. I'm not actually putting any pressure on you at the moment, but to come up with solutions, how we can actually work in partnership, to win more business.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the opportunity here is between the e-commerce platform and the customs clearance. Everything that is kind of coming in between right now is kind of where the problems are when it comes to customs clearance. If you think, the majority of shipments, the documentation is created after the transaction. Someone's scribbling a commercial invoice and writing it down and then using it to try and clear the shipments. What we're talking about here is taking the data used to actually sell the product. So it's high quality data, it's high quality images. And again, our technology, when we do the HS code classification, we're also using the high quality e-commerce image of the product and Google Lens technology to try and work out what it is and apply the right HS code. So all of this information is kind of designed to mean that when it comes to customs clearance, we take the data used for the sale and we put it straight in, and we kind of cut out what's gone on in the middle, and we make everyone's life a lot easier. And if you're doing it from our perspective, which is we just want to give the government the money, because it's what everybody wants, it's the right thing to do, then I think you're doing quite a good job here. So yeah.
And John, anything to add from you?
Yeah, well, I think having these platforms, and having the IT put together, because if you have all the information electronically, like I'm just thinking the old ways, with the time differences and trying to get information and relying on old paper commercial invoices, and it comes in and it's Arabic and it's coming to Canada and I'm looking at like, what the is this? I don't know, and then you have to send an email to Dubai and say, what are you sending here? And you have to wait a day, and then, we get penalized because, we're not transmitting the data fast enough to CBSA because the flight's already landed in Canada. So we've reported it late prior to arrival. And, we go to customs and saying, well, I can't identify what this is, so I wasn't going to make it up. And so, having all of these things and having certain platforms where it's just all electronic it's going to be a huge game changer for us. And it is already. We're already utilizing it, but it can always improve. And then going back to the duty drawback, it's a major challenge in Canada doing that. And I think if you give the governments the tool, like Rudee said, we're controlling what we're sending them, and we have that information and we can send it back and make it easy for them, create a log. They're happy to work with the industry, they're not trying to impede business into the countries. And, if we can prove it, and I think if we create the tools, government, well, I don't want to say anything about the Canadian government here, I don't get in trouble, but, but they don't move fast. And so if we can create it for them, and give them the tools that they need, then why not, And so I think it's a great opportunity.
And coming in now is the government official to take you away.
Nice Nadia. I got the cuffs.
Oh, yeah, but that's a different panel. You're giving it all away now, John. Now, James, coming to an event like this, what's the best thing about coming to these for Zonos and for you?
I've, my roots are in logistics, but with a particular kind of interest in e-commerce, and it's been fascinating for me coming to this event, surrounded by some of the biggest postal operators in the world, and listening to what they perceive to be the challenges, and there's so much time being talked about the operational difficulties that these businesses are facing, and I agree, they face huge operational difficulties, but having the conversation with the e-commerce merchants and the ability to talk to e-commerce merchants about things that are very important to them, lifetime customer value, conversion rates, international conversion rates, bounce rates, all this kind of stuff, you don't hear much of that around here. So whilst we're talking about all these amazing things we can do with customs clearance, I think, educating some of the big operators on how to communicate and how effectively to take that conversation out of, a warehouse talking to an ops guy and put it into a boardroom talking to a head of e-commerce about the value of what we're doing here, because that's the big thing. It's the value.
Absolutely. Mark, what about you? What's the best thing for YCC at an event like this?
Well, in an event like this, I think sharing thoughts, visions, problems and solutions in every different market, and see if they are applicable to my market, and if necessary, how can I apply it.
And then there's the added bonus of finding out what John does at the weekends.
You don't want that.
And on that note, thank you so much, all of you, for joining me today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.